Roy Williams is a marketing man. His clients want to buy whatever advertising sells the most product.
It's Rick Dees in the morning. All communication should be poetic. Bring him in, please. Roy Williams!
Essential to any company is the ability to get your message out. My guest says, don't give up hope. Joining me now is Roy Williams.
Yes, so how do you speak in poetry to people and get them to do things you want them to do?
Here to talk about the advantages of radio advertising is the author of the new book called The Wizard of Ads.
Joining me is Roy Williams. Today we're talking about his book, Secret Formulas of the Wizard of Ads. This is one of the most important books that anybody can read.
What makes people do the things they do? More importantly, how can we get people to do what we want them to do? With another part of the answer to that question, here's the Wizard of Ads, Roy H. Williams.
In this session, we're going to take a look at the 6 tugs of war in the mind. Now, remember, we're trying to answer the question, what makes people do the things they do? Interestingly enough, I'm not the first person to ever ask that question. It was good old Albert Einstein who said, we do things, but we do not know why we do them. Now, Albert was working on questions of physics, so he didn't invest the time to find the answers to the question, we do things, but we do not know why we do them. But not being distracted by such things as E equals mc squared, I've been able to spend a good portion of my life trying to figure out, yes, why do we do the things we do? And the reason I've been looking for that answer is because our job as advertising professionals is to get the customer to do what we want them to do. And if that's our goal, we must have some understanding of what makes people do what they do. We must have some understanding of the tugs of war in the mind of every person. You see, all of our lives, each of us is caught in a tug of war between competing impulses. It's a little bit like an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other, except it's not ever really a choice between right and wrong. It's not a choice between black and white, good or evil. It's more of a tug between north and south. It's a tug between blue and red. It's a tug between two equal but opposite forces. Now, there are 6 of these tugs of war that tug us in every direction incessantly. To understand these tugs of war in the mind of the customer is the beginning of the creation of a good ad campaign. Let's take a look. The first of these tugs of war is the tug of war between intellect and emotion. Now, as we learned earlier, sight and sound are not only received by separate organs, but are stored, processed, and retrieved from memory in totally separate parts of the human brain. Likewise, intellect and emotion have virtually no overlap. Most advertisers will speak to the intellect and try to justify the purchase of their product intellectually, when the odds actually favor emotion. There is a time to speak to the intellect, and in our next session, we're going to look at just such a time. But most of the time, more than half the time, substantially more than half, you're far better off to speak to emotion, because the human creature tends to do what it does because it feels right. And then they use their intellect to find logic to justify what their emotions have already decided. So, Mr. Williams, my customers only care about price. Price, price, price. There's no loyalty anymore. I hear that everywhere I go. Every business owner is thinking it. Every time I do a seminar, they're thinking, well, no, it's just price. Yeah, I tell you, it's a whore's market out there. Whoever will sell it the cheapest is going to get the business. I hear this all the time. I don't say these things because I want to. I say these things because I have to. You're going to hear it time and time and time again. Now, Mr. Williams, I read in USA Today, there's a big research deal they did, and it said what American customer wants is value. Now, I believe the ad should say value in it. If people want value, you need to give them value. Well, there you go. You know, the authority has spoken. Let's just put value in all of our ads. But first we're going to have to understand what value is, you see. J.C. Penney is a fabulous example of a country that is huge, powerful, rich, and successful in spite of bad advertising. You see, I'm going to give you an illustration of this today, but you can succeed in spite of bad advertising, and you can fail in spite of good advertising. You can fail in spite of miraculous advertising. As a matter of fact, advertising that's a little too good can break you completely. I'll tell you an example of that later. Now, I pulled this page at random out of a JCPenney catalog. Love the company, respect their products, have never been impressed with their ads. You see, this particular JCPenney catalog page fell into the trap of value. And it says value right. Cardigan style jacket from Liz Baker Essentials. If you find a similar item somewhere else you think is a better value, return this item and we will refund your money. There you go. Value guaranteed in writing. Ladies, anybody want the jacket? Oh, what else do they sell us in the ad? They start transferring intellectual justification. They're speaking to value, and then they're going to justify it intellectually. It says padded shoulders, single button closure, pockets, fitted with princess seams. Polyester with two-way comfort stretch, it gives and takes. I'm not making this up. And then it says washable or dry clean, domestic or imported. Think about that one. Made in USA or imported. And then it gives us catalog numbers, prices. You got it, didn't you? Thank you. Thank you very much. It gives us prices and catalog numbers and colors to select from, and each color has a number. Huh. The company stays in business. Why? They have fantastic locations, good quality, nice stores, and a 100-year head start on most other retailers. Now, somebody who was brilliant understood that value is not an intellectual thing at all. You see, value in the eyes of the customer is simply the instinctively calculated difference between the anticipated price and the marked price of an item. Now, if I were to say to you, I want you to come into my business, I have a fur coat boutique. We sell very fine furs. And you would protest and say, I don't know anything about furs. I wouldn't know fox from mink, from sable, from sheepdog. And I'm not qualified to judge your prices. And I would say, no, 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 no. I want you to come in and just give me your reaction. Here's what would happen. Even though you don't think you know anything about furs, you would walk in, and that world inside my door, my lighting, displays, temperature, salespeople, how they're dressed, the music, the way you're greeted, the furnishings, the location. All of these things would cause you to have an anticipated price. And if you flipped over the price tag on a jacket, you would have one of two possible reactions, only one of two. Either you would find a price lower than the anticipated price, and you would go, wow, I would have thought more. That's an amazing value. $600? That's $600? No, I might buy that. Or you would flip over the price tag and say, man, that's high. Based on what? Based upon the anticipated price. It's instinctive. You can't avoid it. You always have a reaction to a price tag, and it's always a reaction based upon what you were expecting to see, even if you have no intellectual basis for such expectation. Now, if you saw the exact same fur, precisely the same fur, transported from that store with the sales girls in high heels and the beautiful smells and aromas and lighting and presentation and prestigious street address, if the coat was transported to a wholesale club with mercury vapor lamps in the ceiling, forklifts zipping everywhere, cement floors, and 400 of these coats were wedged on a rack that should hold 50. And you walked up and you looked at the price tag and it said $500. You'd say, these people have lost their minds. Why? Anticipated price. The secret, obviously, to delivering value is to control the anticipated price. Raise the anticipated price. Don't lower the price on the tag. It's an emotional issue, not an intellectual one. Now, one of my favorite retailers of all time went broke. And he went broke because his advertising and marketing outdistanced his banking. This page features a photograph in black and white taken back in the 40s at the end of World War II. It is of a woman being chaired in the arms of some soldiers. She has her eyes squeezed tight with delight. She's laughing. Everyone is celebrating. And there is a pencil sketch of a dress that is watercolored. Certainly not even remotely the color of red that would actually come on the fabric of the dress when it arrived by UPS, no. But you see, the actual color of the dress is largely irrelevant, as is the dress itself or the price thereof. You see, this company will tell you what that dress represents. And they will tell you the kind of person that would wear such a dress. And the associative memory triggered by the squeals of delight of that woman being chaired in the arms of those soldiers in a momentous and happy moment. All of that raises the value. It accelerates the anticipated price. It did a very good job of it. Now, the company was J. Peterman. Now, Jay is no longer at the J. Peterman Company because he succeeded far too well, and it was ads like this, the ad for the Irish pub shirt, that caused him to succeed. It's Friday night at a 200-year-old pub off O'Connell Street in Dublin, world headquarters for conversation. Dark mahogany walls, lean-faced men, ruddy-faced women. The bursts of laughter aren't polite but real, approaching the edge of uncontrol. The stories being told are new, freshly minted just for you. There's no higher honor. The room roar is high, but still not as bad as in New York restaurants where you can't make out what it is you yourself just said. These Irishmen in collarless Irish shirts and tweed caps have managed to keep their mouths shut all week, saving up the good stuff for now, for Friday night, this very place, this very moment. How could one single city possibly give birth to Yeats, Shaw, Joyce, Wilde, Beckett, and all those here tonight as well? Working class Irish pub shirt, price $45, imported, made of 100% cotton, well suited for both the intoxication of talk and the difficult art of listening. Not bad for just hanging out either, or when absolutely necessary for looking interesting. Simple collar bands, 7-button placket, studded neck, no nonsense rounded shirt tails, 2-button adjustable cuff, no pocket. You've got to carry everything you've got in your head. Now, each of us would like just one night of our life to sit on a Friday night in an Irish pub. I'll wager you can smell the pipe tobacco and taste the room temperature ale, can you not? And you can hear the Irish brogue of all the red-headed Irishmen telling the stories they have been saving up all week. Now, you know, you may never make it to that Irish pub, but I promise you'll feel a little bit wittier, a little more clever, and just a tiny bit Irish if you own 1 or 4 of the Irish pub shirts. And you know what's funny? Good old Peterman draws us a pencil sketch of the pub shirt, because see, the actual shirt itself is not nearly as important to us as this is the real one. This is the one the guys sit in Ireland and drink the ale and tell the stories. Wow. Speak to the heart, and the mind will surely follow. You see, the Irish pub shirt was $45. It triggered something at a breakfast table in Sandy Point, Idaho. A husband, having breakfast with his wife one morning, says, "Darling, I'm reading this catalog from J. Peterman. Best I can tell, he's selling $8 Walmart shirts for $45. And he appears to be doing it by writing some really good jabber." Well, I believe I can write some jabber. Let's go to Walmart. And I think what happened is the man and his wife went to Walmart and bought some $8 shirts, probably the ones that Walmart couldn't sell for $8, so they marked them down to $6. And he loads up on the shirts because I saw in the catalog a shirt that just did not impress me too much on its physical appearance, but you know what? In Peterman fashion, the man put a picture at the top of the page to trigger a memory. A picture that just spoke to the taste of meat in the heart of the dog. A picture of something not for sale. By the way, in J. Peterman's 10th year of business, he was awarded Direct Marketer of the Year from Target Marketing magazine. 2 years later, the company failed, even though he had achieved the 4-minute mile. You see, in retail, the average retailer in America hopes to generate maybe $200 per square foot each year. $200 per square foot of retail floor space. Peterman opened some retail stores after he did the better part of $100 million in catalog sales each year. He decided to open some retail stores, and a really fantastic, exclusive, amazing retail store might generate $350 a square foot, but the 4-minute mile would be $500 a square foot in retail sales from 1 square foot. Whew. You take a 5,000 square foot store, you're talking about some real money. Peterman was opening these stores, and they were achieving $500 a square foot in retail sales. But it didn't make any sense to the bank. And so the bank said, Jay, this is scary. We think we want out. Now, Jay was counting on bankers being just like he was, and they're not, which is why there's a chapter in my book, Secret Formulas of the Wizard of Ads, called Banker Talk. And it explains how bankers see the world and how it tends to be the mirror opposite of how business people see the world. Jay is one of the most brilliant advertisers and marketers in the history of the world, and he lost his company because the bank called his note when he was in the middle of a dramatic nationwide expansion. Very profitable company, brilliant pioneers, but yet, before Jay went down, a husband and wife in Sandy Point, Idaho, eating breakfast one morning, reading a Peterman catalog, the husband says, honey, this fellow Peterman, I believe, is selling $8 Walmart shirts for $45, and he's doing it with some real slick jabber. I think you and I should run down to Walmart, get some shirts, and write us some jabber ourselves. And so this fellow, taking his cue from Peterman, I believe, puts a photograph at the top of the page of something not for sale, and it says, if you lie out flat on the stones, it seems odd to try, I know, you will feel, here, that's it, the warmth of the sunlight emanating from the stones. Turn your head to the side, ear to rock, and you will hear the earth revolving on its axis. An adjustment of stones in the riverbed, the heartbeats of Salmon Row. One day I heard the footsteps of someone miles away following someone else. This beautiful mountain lake with a red sedimentary rock terrace leading down to it. And everyone who looked at that picture in this catalog created by this husband and wife at their breakfast table, everyone looked at it and said, you know, I'd love to know the location of that rock. I'd give anything for a map to that rock. Because there's days in my life that I wake up and just don't want to do it. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to do what I know I have to do. I just want to play hooky. I want to lay down on a rock somewhere and feel the warmth of the sunlight emanating from the stones and look at the clouds as they pass overhead and hear music in my mind. I just want to lay there and let a day go by and watch the sun go down from flat on my back on that rock. The man did not offer a map to that rock, but you know what he did offer? Just below it, in classic Peterman style, he offered Henry's shirt. We named this shirt after a guy who used to work in our office. You know the type. Worked nights, Saturdays, and Sundays, a vice president by the age of 28. Then one day he just snapped. Poor old Henry, guess the growth got him. Headed for the high mountains. Last we heard, he was living off 20-inch trout from the stream outside his window. This is the shirt he was wearing the day he decamped. Henry's shirt, the softest, cushiest shirt you'll ever escape in. Now, wait a minute. You can't get a map to the rock, but the next time you have that feeling, by God, put on the Henry shirt. You go to work, and everybody thinks you're there, but you're not. You're not really there today because I got on the Henry shirt, and I'm actually laying on a rock, watching the clouds go by overhead, and I'm not really here. See, I'm in rebellion today. The only person that knows it is me, but I got on the Henry shirt. And it's only $47.50. Who cares that it's the ugliest shirt the world has ever known? It doesn't really matter, does it? Now, Peterman and the next company, Coldwater Creek, both understood. Oh, Coldwater Creek solved their growth problem by going public. We'll just sell stock in the company and have unlimited funding to expand. It's what I think Jay should probably have done. Speak to the felt need of the listener. Make the listener a participant in your ad by use of the word you, Y-O-U. We'll talk about that more in another session. The second tug of war, other than intellect versus emotion, is time versus money. You see, one of the deep, dark secrets of mall developers today is the decrease in traffic during midweek, says Alan Milstein, chairman of the Fashion Network. You could roll a bowling ball down the center of them and not hit a soul. You and I are going less often. We're staying a shorter period of time, and we're visiting fewer stores while we're there, which is really 3 strikes, says Albany, New York-based retail consultant Jeff Corcoran. That's bad news for the malls. That came directly from American Demographics magazine, September of 1996. Analysts say 600 of the country's 2,000 malls could close by the turn of the century. Now, that prediction did not come true, but only because the economy became rampagingly strong and people have more money than they have sense. Now, back when that was predicted, it was February 21st of 1997 at 7:19 p.m. Eastern Time, correspondent Catherine Barrett reporting on the CNN Financial Network. But what was happening? What were we witnessing that caused us to suspect that possibly 600 of the country's 2,000 malls could close by the turn of the century? Remember, the tug of war is time versus money. You live in a society that has more money per household than any society in the history of the planet. And what we have less of than any society in history is time. We have too much to do and too little time. Too many expectations of us, too many places to be and things to do, and too little time to get it all done. Time and money are inversely proportionate. You can always save one by spending more of the other. As a matter of fact, I was spending a day with Rick Dees in Los Angeles, and Rick said, I think I'm going to buy a jet. I said, why? Because I had been told by someone who sold airplanes professionally. As a matter of fact, it was Barry Gaston's father that worked for Beechcraft. He said to his son Barry, he said, you know, men buy airplanes for one reason, to impress a woman. Rick was the exception to that, because I said, Rick, why are you going to buy this jet? And he says, well, you know, Julie and I have this farm in Kentucky. We like to spend a lot of time there, and it's a long way to Kentucky. And for the price of a jet, I can buy back my time. And he goes, I will pay to retrieve the hours of my life. I will buy back time. And if a few $1 million for a jet is all it takes for me to enjoy a few more hours at my farm so that I don't have to change planes in some hub city, I will spend that money. You see, time and money are inversely proportionate. We may not have the money of Rick Dees, but if the saving of money were as important to the American public as we tend to tell ourselves it is, there would be no such thing as convenience stores, because each one of us knowingly, willingly, cheerfully stops every day in front of a convenience store and pay 30 or 40% more money than we could have paid directly across the street at the grocery superstore. It's open 24 hours a day. Why do we pull in front of 7-Eleven and pay that much for something we could have bought across the street for substantially less money and had a bigger selection too? It's because that lady might have been in front of us at the cash register. That lady with a big basket full of stuff. And there's a chance that we were going to have to stand for 4 minutes, maybe 5, behind that lady. There's a chance she would be there. We know we're going to have to park 50 steps further away from the front door than we are at 7-Eleven. We don't have time to take those 50 steps. No, money we have, time we don't. Time versus money is the tug of war in the mind, not of just you and me, but of all the customers, of all the companies in all the nation. Now, time spent in shopping malls. In 1980, the average American citizen, according to Barron's magazine, spent 12.1 hours a month in a shopping mall. Chain store executive was doing a survey during the same years. In 1985, they said it was down to 10 hours a month. 1990, the average American citizen was spending only 4.3 hours a month in a shopping mall. By 1996, 3.5 hours. Guess what was going out the window? Not dollars spent in shopping malls, but time spent comparison shopping. You see, the malls were getting a little shaky. Not because there wasn't as much money being spent in the malls. Oh, it was all being spent. It was just being spent in 2/3 less time. What went out the window was the comparison shopping in all the little parasite stores in the common area. The anchor stores were doing just fine. We pull up out in front of the anchor store, get out of the car, walk into the anchor store, walk back out with what we came for, go home. Time versus money. Now, the New York Times Magazine, April 6, 1997, quote, fully 1/3 of the retail dollars spent in 1996 were spent in a superstore, which did not exist 10 years ago. Superstores have gone from zero to $550 billion in annual sales, or fully 1/3 of the nation's retail revenue in 10 years flat. Borders, the #2 bookseller in the nation, has been opening new superstores at the rate of 1 every 9 days. Barnes & Noble, the leading bookseller, 1 every 4 or 5 days. Staples, office supplies, 2 a week. For Home Depot, nearly 3 a week. Every 48 hours, a 5-acre, 10-acre Home Depot pops up. Every 48 hours. 32 cash registers ringing ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching around the clock. The one nearest here is open 24 hours a day. Where did we used to buy our power tools? Every 48 hours. During this exact same window, Sam's Club, opening a new store every 11 days. Great Big Sam's, every 11 days for the past 10 years. Superstores, category killers. They don't just give the local competition a run for its money, they eliminate it by design. Category dominance is, in fact, the key to advertising in this generation, this year and beyond. Category dominance will determine the degree to which you succeed. And the lack of category dominance will determine the death by which you die. Let me put it to you this way. I have very good news for you. Very good news. Category dominance, being a category killer, a superstore, is not necessarily a function of big square footage and huge inventories. Don't think that it is. You see, Starbucks became category dominant in coffee with little bitty tiny stores and a total inventory in those stores of about $5,000. That's all the inventory there is in a Starbucks. It's not big square footage, it's not big dollars in inventory. How about Radio Shack? Those aren't big, but they're category dominant. So what is category dominance? Category dominance is not a function of square footage, it's not a function of big inventory, it's a function of courage and focus. It's a function of a willingness to be known for something. Now, let's talk about category dominance. You see, it's not a new concept. It has always worked. It's just that in recent years it has become increasingly essential to be category dominant. Once upon a time, a man came to the conclusion he needed to become category dominant. And he said, you know, I'm in a service business. How does a service business become category dominant? And somebody said, well, you have to be known for something. You must implant an associative memory. into the mind of your customer, describing their moment of need, causing them to feel the frustration of that moment, and then you need to associate the name of your company with the smooth resolution of that crisis. Okay, I'm a plumber. How am I going to do that? How am I going to specialize? He came up with a plan. When he told his friends, they said, "You're going to do what? You're going to specialize?" Well, I thought a plumber was already pretty specialized. He ain't an auto mechanic. He specializes in plumbing. And the guy said, "No, I really want to grow this company." He said, "Well, I'll tell you what you do if you want to grow your company. Service business like that, I tell you, man needs a plumber, he gets out the yellow pages. He looks under P for plumber. I'm going to tell you a secret, don't you tell nobody. It's alphabetical. You start your company with an A, you get listed first. Now, I had this friend, he had Acme Plumbing. And a fella come along with Abco. Beat him out. Then this fella come along with AAA Plumbing, and he wiped them both out. Now, you need to check into it, but I believe a man could get Eternal A or Unlimited A, something like that. But you need to check into it, because instead of putting you first, because it was unlimited A's, more than just AAA, they might put you last because unlimited starts with a U. I'm not sure. But I believe it could work. Now, that's your secret right there. The yellow pages. And this plumber said, "Well, no, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm not going to wait until the customer needs a plumber, and I'm not going to really just do plumbing. You see, I'm going to be known for something. I'm going to be known for opening clogged drains." And his friend said, "You going to do what? All you're going to do is open clogged drains? So you're going to go all this work to make a customer, and you're going to open his drain. You got you a happy customer. And the next time he needs a plumber, if he don't need his drain open, you just want him to call someone else? Is that it? Is that what you're going to do? You're going to go broke is what you're going to do." And he says, "Well, I'm going to be known for opening clogged drains, and I'm going to get there faster and open them easier, and I'm going to just dominate the whole idea of opening clogged drains." And he goes, "Well, I sure hope you start it with an A at least." And he goes, "No, I'm not going to put my money in the yellow pages. You see, I want to reach people before the drains clog. I'm going to go on the radio." "You're going to do what? Just how the hell many people do you think has got a clogged drain stand around listening to the damn radio? That ain't going to work. You might as well open you a restaurant, don't serve nothing but chicken. Or pizza. Or open you a big store with nothing in it but toys or some stupid thing." Worked out, didn't it? Roto-Rooter, that's the name, and away go troubles down the drain. Roto-Rooter. You know, category dominance isn't square footage. It isn't big inventory. The plumber with the smallest inventory of any plumbing company in the town. He had a van and a couple of tools in it. He had the courage to be known for something, and he had the discipline to be known for it before the customer had the need. He didn't just try to reach people whose drains were clogged. He reached people whose drains were going to clog someday. And he wanted to be the first company they thought of and the one they feel the best about.
Let's enjoy a brief intermission before we start part 2 of this section.
The third tug of war is opportunity versus security. We have intellect versus emotion, time versus money, pulling us two different ways. Then we have opportunity versus security. You see, opportunity and security, like time and money, are inversely proportionate. As one increases, the other decreases. Ask any banker. If you, in fact, want guarantees, government assurance, you get 4% interest. You can like it, lump it, take it down the road and dump it. You get 4%. Shut up. Well, no, I'm going to have better than 4%. Well, then you ain't getting guarantees, buddy. You will embrace increasing elements and degrees of risk with every interest point that you expect in return. Opportunity and security are inversely proportionate. While people are attracted to the excitement and adventure of opportunity, they are equally desirous of comfort, safety, and security. To which of those will you speak in your ad? Opportunity or security? They're both powerful forces. Oddly enough, the human creature likes to believe they lean toward opportunity. They like to believe they're Rambo, that they're Clint Eastwood, that they're, I'm showing you how old I am. Who's the new guy? Bruce Willis. They like to believe they're Arnold Schwarzenegger. But you know who they really are? Mr. Rogers. What they want is a place to belong, a cozy, comfortable sweater, and lots of guarantees, and not a lot of change. Now, there are people attracted to excitement and adventure. There are people attracted to opportunity. But for the most part, they will choose security when it comes to the push versus shove. People ask all the time, prospective clients. They will come, they'll be interviewed by the staff, and the staff, having not yet voted to even accept the client, sometimes one of these knuckleheads will write out a big retainer check, and he'll slap it on the conference table, and he'll slide it over in front of us, and he'll say, if I hire your company, what can you guarantee me for this money? What's my guarantee? We have a ritual. I always lay my hand on top of his and look him squarely in the eye and say, I solemnly guarantee you will never see this money again. I am keeping the money. You see, opportunity and security are inversely proportionate. And if you believe there's something else you can do with this money that would yield you a higher return, I suggest you do it. Because we're going to do things that scare you. If you don't want to be scared, please get out the yellow pages and look under A for advertising agencies. Because if you came here because you expect paradigm-shifting difference in the way things have been, you want an order of magnitude shift in result, you're not going to get there with incremental change. And no, if it's ever been done before in your industry, then you're now a follower, not a leader. If you're going to knock the ball out of the park, you have to do something that nobody in your industry has ever tried. Now, I think it was Wilbur Wright who said it best. He said, if you are looking for perfect safety, you will do well to sit on a fence and watch the birds. But if you really wish to learn, you must mount a machine and become acquainted with its tricks by actual trial. He spoke these words, speaking to the Western Society of Engineers, on September 18th, 1901. Since flight was considered a physical impossibility by all thinking scientists, the engineers laughed poor Wilbur out of the room. This photo of Wilbur was taken exactly 2 years and 3 months later. The government had completely given up. They had a Manhattan Project, a NASA kind of a thing going, funded by the U.S. government in the late 1800s. They concluded, absolutely unconditionally, that powered flight was a physical, mathematical impossibility, could not be done. They had abandoned all funding, they had shut it down and made the declaration, can't be done, nobody should bother dreaming about that. They spent huge money, big experiments, all the brightest minds, and 2 bicycle mechanics who were willing to die in the sky. Think about it. If this plane takes off, how high will it go? Will we be able to control it? Will we be able to bring it back down to the ground? Or will it just go higher and higher until it falls out of the sky from miles up? 2 bicycle mechanics who ran a bicycle shop in Dayton, Ohio, said, we think the government's wrong. We think the Western Society of Engineers is wrong. We think we can do it with the tools we have here at the bicycle shop. And at Kitty Hawk, they did it. Opportunity and security are inversely proportionate. And when a person says, do you think it'll work? The answer of the advertising professional should be, yes, I do, and I'm willing to bet all your money that I'm right. We tell clients all the time, that our firm is just like the air traffic controllers at the airport. You see, the air traffic controllers have a statement they make, and you must understand this in advertising. The air traffic controllers say, when the pilot screws up, they die. When we screw up, they die. Now, wait a minute. If you're an airplane pilot, the air traffic controller doesn't die if you go down. Why listen to him? Why listen to the ad man? When the ad man says, no, if this doesn't work, you go broke, I'll still be fine. Why listen? Opportunity versus security. We tell people all the time, the stick of the airplane is in your hand. You're the CEO. It's your decision. We're simply telling you what has worked in other industries, a concept, a technology that's been proven to work in a parallel but unrelated industry. And we believe we can borrow that technology that's been proven, that idea, that concept of category dominance. Yes, it worked in toys. It worked in fast food. Category dominance worked in bookstores and home improvement companies. Maybe it would work in a plumbing company. Maybe it would work in a jewelry store. No, it's never been done in jewelry. No, it's never been done in plumbing until Roto-Rooter. But no, the concept is proven. That's just one of many such concepts. If you want to be a pioneer, look for what's already been done, but has never been done in this industry. That's an inside tip. Now, what is the fourth tug of war? It's style versus substance. We have intellect versus emotion, time versus money, opportunity versus security, and now we have style versus substance. Now, do Ben and Jerry make better ice cream, or do they just make better ads? You see, anytime I ask a large audience, which do you prefer, the image of Haagen-Dazs or the image of Ben and Jerry? Every hand in the room says Ben and Jerry. Huh, what's that all about? If you had two bowls of the ice cream in front of you, could you tell the difference? Probably not. People are attracted to people. Did you know that a photograph that has people in it will actually be looked at by more people and for longer periods of time than a photograph that has no people in it? Paintings in a museum. People attract people. Nothing draws a crowd like a crowd. There is nothing more invasive, intrusive, and irresistible than the sound of the human voice, speaking in a language that you understand. People. Humanity is magnetic. One ice cream has Ben and Jerry. The other ice cream has a made-up Euro-sounding word, Haagen-Dazs. We see two guys and we like the guys. We buy their ice cream. Is it a difference in substance? Is it a difference in ice cream? Is it the product itself? I think not. It's style. Now, the style versus substance issue becomes critical when the product has a difference in actual substance. When the product has a difference in actual substance, you need to consider doing what we did in Springfield, Missouri for an early client that's still a client and a good friend, Andy of Andy's Frozen Custard. Ugh, frozen custard. Everybody imagines it's like a Jell-O pudding pop or what? What is that exactly? You know, here's what's interesting. We get this call years ago, and Andy says, I want to hire your company. I says, what do you sell? And he said, frozen custard. I'm going, what's frozen custard? And he goes, well, come and try some. And so I'm there, and I said, so I only want to tell the story that's uniquely and wonderfully your own. And he said, okay, this is it. There's less than 100 places in the world that you can buy frozen custard made correctly. It has a shelf life of less than 1 hour. You have to serve it immediately after you make it. Number two, the federal government, the USDA, recognizes frozen custard as the most premium form of ice cream. We exceed all the criteria for ice cream. We can call our product ice cream, but neither Haagen-Dazs nor Ben & Jerry nor any other premium ice cream can call their product frozen custard. The USDA recognizes frozen custard here and everything else a notch below it, or multiple notches below it. He started describing how Hard-pack ice cream like Ben & Jerry's or Haagen-Dazs that you buy at the grocery store has 55% whipped air so that you can drive a spoon into it when you pull it out of the freezer. Frozen custard has a short shelf life because you cannot store it in the freezer because it's less than 15% whipped air. It is so dense, so heavy, so smooth, so cold, so incredibly rich, and it's ice cream, but it's ice cream times, ice cream squared, okay, or cubed. And so he then said, here's what we do. You know, we use fresh bananas, fresh strawberries, the most expensive hot fudge in the world. We use whole roasted pecan halves, not like little bits of pecan, but the whole pecan half. And we use blah, 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 blah. And so I said, well, let me taste it. And it's really incredible. I said, you know, the problem is obviously this word custard. You have a difference. It's actually different. It's a different product. And he said, yeah, it is. How are we going to communicate that? We'll never get past the word custard. Custard has like negative associations. It just is not an appealing word. But he had all this money invested in signage. He had, you know, the name of this. And so instead of digging in my foot and saying, we're going to overcome, I said, we're going to overcome the name. Instead of digging in my foot and saying, we're changing the name of the company. We cannot overcome the word custard. I decided there's a difference in substance. And just ads of a clever style won't do it. Doing what Ben & Jerry did was not the right thing for Andy's frozen custard. It was right for Ben & Jerry. Our ice cream may or may not be any better than Haagen-Dazs, but you like us better, don't you? Style is what they embraced. Substance is what I chose to go with Andy's because he had a difference in substance. And so we went on the air, and he said, listen, he said, I'm willing to spend $10,000. And I said, yippee skippy, call the press. You're willing to spend $10,000. What do you expect for your $10,000, Andy? He said, well, it's the middle of winter time. We don't have any inside dining. We have 2 locations, no inside dining. Snow's 18 inches deep outside. And we have walk-up and drive-through service only. I said, so for your $10,000, what do you want to see in Springfield, Missouri? And he said, well, I'd like to see 500 new customers. I said, well, how are you going to know they're new customers? He said, oh, I'll know. Our regulars, we know them by name. Anytime we see a new face, we recognize it as a new face. And he said, you see, Roy, when you've had this, you get addicted. And he goes, you will come back regularly for the rest of your life. I said, really? And he said, oh, yeah. I said, are you sure of that? And he said, absolutely. I said, Now, Andy, you're sure you'll recognize the new faces? Positively. You want to see 500 new faces for $10,000. He said, Roy, if you brought me 500 new people, they would come back from now on. And even though I'd have $20 a piece invested to get them to try my custard, I'd make that back relatively quickly because they would keep coming back and back and back. And I said, well, Andy, here's what we're going to do. Do you care how I spend the $10,000? I don't care at all. That's why you're here. And I said, good, because I'm going to bring you a lot more than 500 people. And it's going to cost you a lot less than $10,000. And he says, well, what are you going to do? I said, get a good night's sleep, because I'm going to call one radio station. I'm going to spend $500 or $600 buying one spot an hour from 6 a.m. until midnight. And the spot is going to say, hey, listen, you've driven by Andy's Frozen Custard a million times. You never stop because you can't get past the word custard. You think it's going to be no good. Well, listen, this is the best stinking stuff you've ever had in your life, and to prove it, we're going to give you your first one free. Come by anytime today before midnight. No secret password, no coupon, no gimmick. We're handing them out the window, full size, not some wormy little sample size deal, but the full $2 cone. We're just going to give you one, and if it's not the best stinking ice cream you've ever had in your life, then throw it away. We're sorry we wasted your time, but we think you're going to come back every few days for as long as you live. We're going to be open until midnight. Come and get your free ice cream. You're not going to believe how good this stuff is. Now, wait a minute. Make a claim, back up the claim. Prove what you say. Stand behind it. And instead of making it a stylistic campaign, we gave it teeth. No pun intended. We gave the campaign substance. 11,000 people tried Andy's Frozen Custard that day. They know it was 11,000 because they counted the empty cone boxes littering the floor at the end of the day. And they knew how many cones came in a box, and they went through they counted the boxes, and over 11,000 people. It cost about $600 in advertising and $1,500 in custard mix. Not a bad investment. And Andy was right. Business immediately jumped by 80%, almost doubled his business overnight, and never came back down. Kept growing and growing and growing. Hey, if there's a difference in substance, the key is prove the difference, claim the difference, stand behind the difference, let the customer experience the difference. Is it a question of style, Ben & Jerry's, or is it a question of substance, Andy's Frozen Custard? It's a decision. It's a tug of war that's going on in the mind. And you need to know which side of the fence to fall on behalf of your advertiser. Now, the next to the last of the tugs of war is pain versus gain. It's a very simple question. What price will you pay to achieve your desires? Gain always comes at the price of pain. You can't separate them. Sometimes it pays to speak to the pain. Sometimes it pays only to describe the gain. Tug of war number 6 is sight versus sound. Now, when we studied the map of the human brain, we studied the auditory association area, Broca's area, Wernicke's area, and the dorsolateral prefrontal association area, where visual imaging happens in the mind, in the part of the brain connected to the ear. Now, when implanting an associative memory into the mind of his dog, why did Pavlov choose to use sound rather than sight? Because it's easier, that's why. You can close your eyes, but you cannot close your ears. You do not see unless you are watching, but you hear even when you're not listening. Sight and sound are pulling us two different ways. Sound is utterly irresistible. Your eyes will scan things and you do not see some of the things you saw. To illustrate this, let me ask you, can you name the color of your neighbor's car 5 doors down from where you live? Now, you drive past that car dozens of times a week. You drive past that car every time you come or go from your house. But you can't name the color of that car. Why? You do not see unless you are looking, unless you determine to store it in the brain. But you hear, even when you're not listening. To illustrate this, we very often will play a short video, and it is movie clips of people singing to a radio, or a group of people all singing a song around a table. Just different movie clips, little short clips. Dozens of songs. I will then ask the audience, how many of you knew all those songs, or most of those songs? All the hands fly up. All different styles of music, and the reason the hands fly up is the average American citizen can sing more than 2,000 songs, not one of which you ever intended to learn. Sound is invasive, intrusive, and irresistible. It enters an unwilling mind. You hear even when you're fast asleep. How else would you know there is a prowler in the house? Now, I want to talk to you about two kinds of memory. We talked about the visual association area at the back of the skull in an earlier video. Now let's talk about the auditory association area, where sound enters the mind. You see, too many advertisers are speaking to the intellect when they should be speaking to emotion. Too many advertisers are speaking to the eye when they should be speaking to the ear. It's a choice you must make, and the customer is torn both ways. He sees things and he hears things, but what he remembers best is what he hears. I know you may have been taught otherwise in basic human learning class. They taught you that the citizen remembers this percentage, small percentage of what he hears, larger percentage of what he sees, but mostly what he sees and hears. I'm here to tell you that's crap, 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 crap. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. What a person remembers is that which they found interesting. If they found it useful, fascinating, or interesting, they remember it, regardless of how it entered the mind. Now, where did this foolish myth come from, that people remember more of what they see than of what they hear? Iconic memory is the memory of visual sight. Think of an icon. An icon is a visual image. Iconic memory. Echoic memory is the memory of sound. Now, think of echo, 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 echo. Iconic, echoic. What enters the eyes is in the mind less than 1 second, 1 second, before it evaporates and is gone. and there's no recall. This is why eyewitnesses can never agree on what they saw. 50 people saw it happen. No 2 of them can agree. What's going on? What's happening is this, oh, just ask a cop. Say to a cop, what's the most frustrating thing about being a cop? And he'll say, God, eyewitnesses. They can never agree on what they think happened. Iconic memory, that which enters the eyes, is gone in less than a second. Usually, an eyewitness does not realize the importance of what they have seen for about a second, at which time all clear memory is gone from the mind, and they must now reconstruct what they think probably happened based upon the remaining evidence. But yet all 50 of those eyewitnesses will agree implicitly, precisely on what they heard. Because what enters the ears bounces around in echoic memory in the articulatory loop for 5 full seconds. And it begins to fade very slowly. And when it goes into long-term memory, it is stored with such accuracy that you can misquote something, and a person will say, no, that's not how it goes, bang, and they'll catch it. Now, most of you cannot name the order of colors in a rainbow, even though you've seen rainbows all your life. What's the color on bottom? What's the color on top? What colors are included and in what progression? Now, you have no clear memory of it because you've never paid attention, yet you have totally clear memory of all these songs, more than 2,000 of them, even though you've never paid attention. Sound is invasive, intrusive, and irresistible. Ask anybody that consults or counsels disabilities, people with disabilities, handicaps of any kind. And they will say, you know, contrary to popular myth, being blind is not that tough. Being deaf is devastating. Being deaf is vastly, vastly more difficult than being blind. Now, the people who taught us that we remember more of what we see than of what we hear did not understand during those years when they did that little study that the human mind does not understand the written word until it has become the spoken word in the mind. And that even when you're reading silently, you're hearing it in your mind. When you memorize a poem, a speech, or a Bible verse, it is the sound of the words in your mind that you recall, not the physical appearance of the words on the printed page. If I ask you to recite the letters of the alphabet, most of you would leave a short pause after the letter G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. You would do it unconsciously. Now, here's how it happened. A group of people are brought into a room like this, and a facilitator says 10 words, 10 unrelated words, 2 seconds apart. It takes approximately 20 seconds to say the 10 words. One time each, 10 unrelated words. He leaves the room. Goes into another room, puts the same 10 words on a screen. And he leaves those 10 words on the screen for 10 seconds. Now, the illusion here is that we're going to measure memory of sight as opposed to memory of sound. The problem is that, yes, of course, when they came back to the room that looked at the screen for 20 seconds, they had a much higher retention of the words in the list. When they were asked, when both groups were asked, write down as many of the words as you can recall. The people who saw the words could write down more of the words. Ta-da! What have we proven? What we have proven is that a repetition of 5 is better than a repetition of 1. Because if you put 20 words on a screen, the average person will read that list 5 times in 20 seconds. They heard the words in their mind. They chanted those 10 words 5 times during the 20 seconds the words were on the screen. They heard the words 5 times, the other group heard the words once. Oh, gee, I'm surprised. Somebody hears something 5 times, they have better retention than if they hear it once. And they've been lying to America, not realizing they were lying. But they will quote, did you know what? They only recently figured out that 30 years ago, some knucklehead scientist put a decimal point in the wrong place and that spinach is not nearly as good for you as they previously thought. Decimal point in the wrong place. Hey, what are we going to do with all these Popeye cartoons? Spinach ain't that good for you. Likewise, were you ever taught about the 4 basic food groups? The only thing that proves is it proves the era in which you went to school. That was the 5th of the food grouping. See, it started out as the 12 basic food groups, and it was a 7 basic, and then it was a 5 basics, and it was a 4 basic food groups, and then it became, in the 70s, believe it or not, the hassle-free food guide, as you could only have in the 70s. And then it became the hassle-free guide. And then 4 basic food groups is passé. We're four things past it now. And now they've decided it's a pyramid. There was a food wheel, and now it's a pyramid. Hey, I'm here to tell you, disabuse yourself of all this stuff that you were taught about how you remember more of what you see than of what you hear. It isn't true. Neurologists know that it isn't true. I know it isn't true. And as advertising professionals, you need to know it isn't true. Even when you're advertising visually, it is the sound of the words that are critical. In the mind, the printed word has no meaning. Now, iconic memory stores visual data. Echoic memory stores information as sound. Echoic memory is much more trustworthy, much more long-term, much more easily recalled, and with greater accuracy. Now, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Who said that? Rhett Butler. What was the movie? Now, we weren't talking about old movies, were we? We weren't talking about the Deep South. I had given you no recall cue whatsoever. You simply saw the words on the screen. You heard them from my mouth. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Bam. Immediate associative memory. You remember what he said, even though you have not seen him say it any less times than you've heard him say it. I promise you cannot tell me what was on the screen when those words left his mouth. The words are stuck in your mind forever. So, everybody remembers, if you're old enough, the Winston jingle, Winston tastes good like a cigarette should. Now, congratulations, because it was January 1st, 1971, when the federal government outlawed the use of sound to sell tobacco. They gave the tobacco companies unlimited freedom, absolute, unconditional, unlimited freedom to use visual advertising in any method they chose. Now, the federal government said you can't use TV and you can't use radio, you can't use sound. But you can use direct mail, point-of-purchase displays, you can use full-page double-truck ads in newspapers, you can use the inside front cover and the back cover of every magazine in America in full color. You can do anything you want to do visually. Smoking immediately began to decline in America, and it began to fall out of favor with the American people. And for the next 23 years, up until barely 6 years ago, Winston invested hundreds of millions of dollars in visual advertising to convince us of a new slogan without the intrusive, invasive, and irresistible nature of sound. Now, I first began this challenge when they were still using that slogan about 15 years ago. And many, many, many times I've held up a $100 bill and said, for $100, who can tell me the slogan that Winston spent $1 billion trying to plant in our brains with billboards, magazines, newspapers, direct mail, and point-of-purchase displays? We remember the echoic slogan. We remember the jingle. We remember the sound that we unwillingly committed to memory. Against our will. We never chose to memorize that jingle, but we remember it 29 years later, even though we've not heard it for 29 years. For $100, not one time, and the number of people I've done this with have been countless thousands over the past 15 years. And even when they still had that slogan on billboards outside, even though people had seen it in the newspaper on their way here this morning, not one person has ever known what that slogan was. Because you can close your eyes, but you cannot close your ears. You hear what does not interest you, and you remember it. You hear and store and can recall from memory vastly more than what comes in your eyes. If you just look at the size of the auditory association area of the brain and compare it to the size of the visual association area, it should be clear that sound is more important to the human creature than sight.
Thank you, Roy. Never thought of it that way. We hope to see you all again next time for more from the Wizard of Ad's Academy.